some design considerations if you are considering building your own chatbot, and then finally wrap up with some questions. In between here and there, like after the first 2 sessions, I will, go to my screen, my computer, and kind of show you some of the chatbots that I have built. And we'll do that kind of interspersed, because I've built, a few chatbots. Now, when I say build, I hope you understand that there's going to be a difference between like the chatbots that are at OpenAI and Google and others, and then the other ones that we use. But we will understand all of that as we go along. So first, what exactly is a chatbot? And, as the name implies, it's a chat, meaning have a conversation, and bot implies some kind of machine or computer or robot, right? And so chatbots are essentially computer programs that simulate conversations with humans, and that can be through a text-based method or through a voice command. Now, in the world of these chatbots, or the conversational AI as they are now called, there are 2 main types. There's the voice assistant and then the true chatbots. Now, the voice assistant types, they have been around for a long time. We've been using them and maybe not even realizing those are chatbots. Siri and Alexa and Cortana and Google Home, these are all conversational, these are all voice activated or voice assistant type chatbots, right? So they respond to your voice command, and they would either give you information or order your Amazon product or turn the lights off or give you directions or, whatever it is your query is to the chatbots. Now, in the other side, that's where we have what we call the true chatbots. And that is the ones that are able to be a little bit more than just following your voice commands. They can answer your questions and give you information. And as we will see with the ones that are powered by AI, now they can write essays and scripts, and the world of these conversational, or I should say artificial intelligence powered bots are always expanding and merging into this one huge virtual assistant for almost everything that you might be needing. And so with the chatbot types, they're broken down into 3 main groups. There's the rule-based chatbots, then there's the AI-powered chatbots, and in the middle, there's a hybrid. There is these AI-powered chatbots that are then customized based on very specific rules. So they can answer questions specifically, but they can also provide additional information. And so let's take a look at the rule-based chatbots, right? So they follow very specific commands, they answer very specific questions, and they operate within the confines of those questions. So anything outside of the questions that were built in, they're unable to handle. They can't provide answers. They usually say, sorry, I can't help you, if it's not something within their system, right? So these are the rule-based chatbots, and these are the ones that have been around for a long time. And you've probably used a few of them and experienced the frustration of them not being able to handle very specific questions. But they can be very handy in certain situations, right? For example, we have this chatbot here. This would be a rule-based chatbot, right? So even though it's saying, hello, I can help you list legal issues. So it's telling you right here, that is what I'm designed for, and this is what I can help you with. If you need any other type of information, I cannot help you. That's what this chatbot is saying. And it goes even further to restrict the inquiries that you can make. You can you want to know about selling a house, about divorce, about a will, or a power of attorney, or how to start a company. That is the limit of the questions that this rule-based chatbot can handle. And so these chatbots are limited, but they have their place, right? Because they're easier to train and easier to work with. They're much cheaper to develop. You can train them to follow the flow of conversation. They can handle very simple decision making. And because of they're trained on a very specific data set, the data set of your company or your choosing, then you have the security of it's not saying things outside of that or giving some kind of incorrect or false information, right? And so you can control the responses and the activities of these kinds of chatbot. And of course, because they're so simple, they can very easily be integrated into your website or any other kind of app that you may develop. So those are the quick and easy ones. They are limited because they cannot learn. So if you set it up to answer specific questions, and people ask questions outside of that, then it is not going to get any better at answering those questions, unlike the other types of chatbots, which we will see. So I want to go into, and I hope I can do this easily. So I want to show you one example of a rule-based chatbot that I have been creating. So this is on a website called JuneBot, and it's free to, you can upgrade and get more facilities and use it as accordingly. So this is my rule-based chatbot that I was creating. So I'm creating a chatbot to help people understand the world of AI, the tools and the resources as far as artificial intelligence keeps expanding every day. And people can get overwhelmed and confused by, what tools do what and what to use for what. So I'm creating a chatbot, and it's a rule-based chatbot to help people, understand. So when they come into the chatbot, it will ask, do you have a question about a particular tool, a specific task, about AI in general, or how generative AI works. And so those would be the first questions or the first options that the user has. And then I have written in some, possible responses that the person can give. And then for each of those responses, then there will be another type of responses to follow, and it will walk them through in a very simple way, helping them to understand this vast world of artificial intelligence on all of the many, many tools that are, available that you can use, because it's growing so fast. But, JuneBot is just one of many of these platforms that you can use to create your own rule-based chatbot. And then you can integrate it with anything. So you can integrate it with, as far as the email is concerned, you can change it, the format, you can put in dates and open-ended answers if that's what you want the bot to do. You can change the different images and GIFs. You can even put videos in there. There's a host of things that you can do. And one of the things about a lot of these rule-based chatbots now, previously rule-based chatbots did not allow for much collecting of data, but now again, these are kind of merging into that hybrid space where they can collect information and do some type of analysis in terms of what's the most common questions asked, what are people struggling with, and those kinds of things. So that is an example of a rule-based type of chatbot. So that, so if we saw the voice activated, and then we looked at the rule-based, right? So now we can talk about the AI-powered chatbots, and this is where ChatGPT lives. Now, of course, ChatGPT is just one of many of these chatbots that are available, and I'll explain exactly what they are. But first, we get to do a little bit of a history lesson. And let me go back to my full presentation. Yeah. So this is just a comparison of rule-based chatbot, how it works. So it gives you, how can I help you? But it doesn't allow you to give an open-ended answer. These are some of the choices: order, status, cancel order, request, return request, right? And then you say, receive my refund. So the bot is going to assume that you have canceled your order, and so you're now waiting for your, the refund and stuff. Whereas with the AI-powered chatbot, it's much more open in terms of the questions that you can ask and how the bot is able to answer. But let's go back to the beginning as far as where these chatbots came from, right? We had the rule-based chatbots. They've been around for a long time, since 1966. Google had the first Eliza chatbot that you could ask questions and it will give you some very straightforward answers, but it was able to quote unquote understand. And it's by understand, I mean recognize the question and then know which answer to generate for that question. But so that was Eliza back in 1967. And then you had the LSTM type of models, right? So the field of natural language processing is now expanding. The area of computer science and linguistics and artificial intelligence are all merging to make computers better at understanding language, because understanding natural language for computers is an extremely challenging task. We speak with all of these nuances and all of these idioms. I'm listening tonight and I heard that, the speakers, everyone for the most part was speaking in a second language. I don't have a second language, I just have one. So I'm at a huge disadvantage. And so you are able to understand some things of the complexity of language that we humans speak. And so trying to get computers to understand human language has been an ongoing innovation. And so with the technology of the long short-term memory, now the computers are getting better and better at understanding. And then in 2010, the core NLP was developed at Stanford. So now they have using linguistics and some, sound technology and computer science and all kinds of things now to help the computers break down our language and then kind of make sense of it and understand what's happening. And then in 2011, we had Google Brain. That was another landmark activity in the field of large language model. But the most important thing as far as these large language models are concerned was the transformer architecture, right? So this was the model invented by Google that finally allowed for the models or for the system to be able to incorporate context into the interpretation and understanding of the language. And so it made the models much, much better. It significantly improved language understanding, language interpretation, language translation, and eventually language generation by the use of Google's transformer. And so 3 years later, OpenAI, the company building on Google's technology in the transformer, they were able to create ChatGPT 3. And then 3 years later, we have the ChatGPT version that we use today. But it is a significant effort and a combination of the technologies of artificial intelligence, which is the ability of systems and machines to perform or to do things in a human-like manner. So that science of artificial intelligence is what allows machines and computers to to understand and to think and to reason and to learn and to make decisions, right? And then you combine that with the innovation of natural language processing, which is breaking down the language into pieces and turning those words into vectors and then processing them to make sense of them. That the combination of those technologies is what gives us today these large language models, or the foundation model that Google built. And so the foundation models, they are trained on massive amounts of data, right? So text data, image data, speech data, structured data, signal data, unstructured data, massive amounts of data. And now you have these foundation models that are able to, you can now adapt them to a variety of tasks. You can adapt them to question answering, sentiment analysis, information extraction, image captioning, object recognition, instruction following. And so that is the foundation model that OpenAI took and customized it to then make it into the GPT-3 and eventually ChatGPT. And that is kind of where it lives. But now ChatGPT is able to do sentiment analysis. It can even do image generation. So the models used to be segmented by the task, but now there's a merging of these models, and a lot of models can do many tasks at once, right? And so the large language models, as we know it now, they can be trained on structured data, text, voice, signaling, and they can perform all of these types of activities. So that's how we get to the types of models that we have today. And that includes not just GPT-3, but we have Bard and Bing, and we have Claude, and we have Cohere, and those are just the popular ones. If I should show you very quickly, there is this website, Hugging Face, and this website contains over, I don't even remember, several 100,000 models, okay? So so here we have 536,000 models. All kinds of models, image to text models, computer vision models, natural language processing models, audio models, tabular models, reinforcement learning models, graph machine learning models. So any kind of model that you can think of, it is available on this platform, Hugging Face. And for the most part, they're all free, meaning open source. So if you want to build your own tool, your own AI-based tool, your own ChatGPT, you can come and you can take one of these models and you can use it to build that tool. Of course, it will require some customizing and training, because if you saw what OpenAI did in order to have ChatGPT, right, they had to do a significant amount of reinforcement learning with human feedback. That's what that RLHF stands for. And that is literally having humans in the loop in terms of, you give the model a question or a prompt, it generates answers. A human then evaluates the answer in terms of whether it's a good answer, a true answer, one that a human would give, and they feed that back into the model and say, this one is good, this one is not, this one is higher, this one is better. And they do several rounds of that in order to get to the model that we have today. Because the model prior to that reinforcement learning with human feedback did not perform as well. The responses were all over the place, very incoherent, and sounded very much like a machine a lot of the times. And so they did a lot of this RLHF. They're not the only one, almost everyone did. And then on top of that, they put in a lot of safety features to enable the model, to perform and to behave properly. And even after they released it, there was still a lot of training that needed to be done. And so if you go to use those models that are on Hugging Face, those are some of the risks that are involved. But again, you can do your own fine tuning and customizing and your own reinforcement learning with human feedback and make the model to get the model just exactly as you want. But the important thing is that all of these models, all these AI-powered chatbots are based on the large language model or the foundation model that was generated, that was created by Google. And so that is where we are now. There's several models, like I said, and these models are humongous in terms of the number of parameters that they are, contain, and that gives them the ability to do the things that they do. And so that's why instead of, first of all, we a non-entity that's not like Google or OpenAI that does not have millions of dollars, we cannot train our own model because that's how much it costs to train those models. And then even if we did, it would be still a lot involved in terms of, all of the other training that's required, and then, the marketing and everything. So it's not worth it. And that's why, for the most part, 90% of the businesses that are AI powered right now are using OpenAI's API. They are using the API or the key that allows them to connect to OpenAI's chatbot, and that's what is powering most of their system. And these conversational tools, or conversational AIs as they're now called, chatbot is another name, they have become a huge factor. One of the speakers this earlier was saying that he remembered a time when the computers were just now coming around, and people had all kinds of views and concerns about whether it would be safe and take their jobs and all that kind of stuff. And then we moved to the next phase where now everybody's using the computers, as one lady mentioned, even her little granddaughter. And so it's become so much a part of our lives. And this is the next stage, right? Because the computer was the stage where we were actually typing. We would go to a website and we would type in, or we would go to Google and we would search. Now it's becoming, this is the fastest growing area of technology, chatbots or conversational AIs. People are wanting that personalized attention, and companies are recognizing the benefits of having a chatbot on their website that can serve their customers 24/7 and can gather information, can give personalized responses, and just save the company a whole lot of money, because when the customers are happy and satisfied, then they stay with that business. And that's what the chatbots are allowing them to do. So some of the main benefits are the customer service that it provides, and then of course the informational type of chatbots that provides information on almost anything, depending on how it's trained. And then some companies are using it for lead generation in terms of segmenting their customer base and figuring out who it would be a good customer or not, or what that customer needs, or anticipating the need of the customer. All of these kinds of things is what chatbots are being used for. And again, I mentioned the availability, 24/7, scalability, meaning you can, have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, as many chatbots as you want. And this is where the threat to employment might be real, right? Because if you can have a chatbot to be the customer service representative, then you can have as many as you need, and you can have them work at as many hours and not have to worry about paying overtime or people getting tired, or any of those issues. But it's important to remember that the chatbots there's still limits to their capabilities, right? They are still simulating conversation. It's not real, and that I have to remind people about that all the time. And so there are limits to their conversation. And so if you are building a chatbot, you must put in place some kind of an out where if there's something that the chatbot cannot understand or cannot handle, or some danger warning sign, that's when they need to transfer the customer to a live person. And unfortunately, a lot of people are doing that, but that is something that it's extremely important. All right. So before I go into the chatbot architecture, let's take a little dive again and look at another one of my chatbot creation. So I have so this is Dialogflow, and we'll talk a little bit about Dialogflow later. But this is Google's chatbot creation platform, right? And this is all, it's a hybrid. You can do rule-based, but you can also incorporate AI into that, right? And so you can set it up such that you can put in the greetings and the questions and the responses that you want the AI to give. And then you can also have an option where if the question asked is not one of these questions, then the model or the large language model or the AI will kick in and use its massive training data to come up with the best answer. And so that's always an option. But the thing about these types of AIs is that it allows for you to upload or to use your own database. And by doing so, then you can restrict or you can control the responses that you want the model to give. But you can also then be, kind of, if it's a business, you can make sure you're keeping the customer within your business and not having them going elsewhere to search for whatever it is that they may need. Another type of chatbot, so this is using the Python. So with OpenAI, they have given you the option to create chatbots with their custom GPTs, and those are they are within the confines of the paid option, right? So it's not in the GPT-3, it's GPT-4, right? But if you have GPT-4, you can create custom GPT. And I have a bunch of custom GPT here. For example, this is one of my custom GPTs. So it's an Andrew Ng Insight. And what I've done is I have fed to the model, and I can go into the inside of it. And I have fed to this model the information that I want the model to use for the answer. So here I can, I gave the name, I described what it does, and then I said, these are the instructions. You are to act as the Dr. Ng's AI mentor, and you're assigned to prioritize data science, machine learning, artificial intelligence. I just realized I spelled relevant wrong there. And so you can put in the specific instructions that you want, and then I uploaded to this custom GPT very specific data that I want the model to use to answer questions. So these are all files that I have gotten from YouTube videos or speeches or talks that Dr. Andrew Ng has given. And I don't know if you know who Dr. Ng is, but he is almost like the father of artificial intelligence, especially artificial intelligence education. Here, he's one of the founders of Coursera, and now he has OpenAI Academy and some other school where you can have all these courses. And so he's a renowned expert in the field. So I have created my own custom GPT based on his persona. And so now whenever I ask a question to the model, and I have some built-in questions here, then it will respond based on Dr. Ng's approach to artificial intelligence and machine learning. So that's one of the AIs that I've created. Then I have some other AI, and I have one here. This is like a statistics whiz tutor type AI. So it will guide students into following, when you ask a question, the model will say, you're asking about central limit theorem. What do you know, if anything, about this topic? So before the model answers the question, it is asking, what do you know? So this is a kind of a tutor type model for my students. So instead of just giving them the answer, it gets some feedback, and you can say central limit theorem, and if I can spell while I am talking would be fantastic, is about the distribution of values. And, you can say whatever, and it will say, is that correct or that wrong? Is that, and then it kind of guides you like that. But it always uses a question answer type of response to answer the question. So that's another form of where it can answer the question. So it says, yes, you're on the right track. Central limit theorem it does deal with the distribution of sample means, and it goes on to give you the answer. And then the final one that I want to show here, which is one of my favorites, is the one that generates a cartoon-like visuals of any topic that I put in. And I've programmed it to give the kind of a response that I want, and then generates. It connects to the DAL-E, which is the image generation, and it provides images. So here it's describing the images that it's going to generate, and then eventually it will describe the 4 panels of the image that will explain neural networks, right? And here it is generating that image. It takes a while to generate those images. But that gives you some idea of the kind of things that you can do, because with the with AI, with the APIs, you can connect to any one of the already trained models, or you can use something like ChatGPT, and you can customize it specifically to what you want it to give you an answer. And even with the without the customization, you can put in some specifications in terms of how you want your model to answer. And so here is panel number 1. We're going to move on because it's going to take a while to generate all 4 of those panels, but that's one of my custom GPTs. So moving on, if I can find where I was, here we go. How much time do I have? I've been talking for a while.
Okay.
Send me a message in the chat, whoever is talking. So, so when it comes to chatbot building, these are the building blocks that you have to think about, right? So there's a large language model always at the base, and these large language models, they have very specific tasks that they can perform. They can do clustering, they can do dialogue management, they can do text generation, they can do question answering, and they can also do language translation. So that's the base performance activity task of any foundation model. And so then when you take one of those foundation models now and you want to make a chat bot specifically, you have to think in terms of these 4 specific areas, right? The intents, the entities, the dialogue flow, and the script. So the intent is essentially teaching the model or the computer to recognize what the user is thinking. And that means, so if, for example, you want the model to be able to answer questions about, in my case about artificial intelligence, you have to recognize that they could spell out artificial intelligence, the two words, or they can say AI, or they may say generative AI, or there might be different ways that they may be asking about a certain question. And so the intent is whether, what do they want? Like, do they want information, or do they want guidance, or are they, sure, and they just want to get to the next step? For example, with the pizza store, that chatbot that you're creating in Google's platform, you want to recognize whether they want to order pizza, or whether they want to cancel their order, or whether they're looking for something other than what the store offers. And so that's where the intent comes in. And then the entity, it's related to that. These are the nouns that the model is going to be recognizing in as far as its answer is concerned. And then the dialogue flow is leading the user along a very specific path so that you can get to some resolution of their their problem or their request. And then there's a script sometimes that's written that you want the model to be trained on. So if it's asked this question, it gives this answer. If not, so on and so on. And then, of course, the conversational AI basics in terms of understanding the task, what is being asked, the question, what language, and how it's, the users usually ask these questions. Reasoning, being able to recognize when the user is, satisfied or not, or finished, or still needs more, because that's one of the frustrations of the rule-based chatbots, in that you ask a question and that's the end of it. There's no continuation, there's no follow-up, right? Whereas now these new chatbots, you can keep the context of the conversation. And so that's been a huge boost. And of course, then once they understand the response, being able to generate the question, the query, then they're able to generate a suitable response. And so the parts that you need to think about is the language processing, natural language processing involved, intent recognition, and dialogue management. Now, these are all areas that you could spend, weeks studying and learning and understanding to make sure that, in your chatbot building efforts, you are putting in all of the right things in the right places, right? And so this is a representation of that, all of these parts as far as this chatbot powered IT support is concerned, right? So this company, they built a chatbot, and it's specific to IT support. And so you have the user with the proactive or personalized type of response that the model is able to give. Then it can also give specific answers. So if there's a question or a problem that the model can identify and it is aware of what the solution is, it can direct the user to that solution. Or it then may pass that over to another agent, and that's a different type of model usually that is a little bit more complex and has a little more capacity for handling issues. And then if all of these fails, it hands it over to a live agent, right? So these are just, just an example of some of the things that you think about when you're building a chatbot. And again, this is another example of the flow, the ideation case. So you're thinking about what it is you want this chatbot to do, then what kind of information will be required for the model to respond appropriately. Because even though if you're using OpenAI or any of the other models, and they are trained on massive amounts of data, now their database, the training data, may contain the response to that question that the user has, but it may also contain a whole lot of other responses. And so you don't want the risk of having the model sometimes give the right answer and sometimes not, right? So you want to increase the probability of the right answer being generated, every time the question is asked. And so those are some of the restrictions that you will place on the model. And then the conversational flow. So you're training the model when this section is completed, you move to the next section. Bot styling and NFL refinement. So, cleaning up the responses, telling the model, this is not a good word to say, and this is not, this is how you respond, and, these kinds of things. Because you have to remember, these models are probability models. So it's usually going to respond with the answer that is of the highest probability. And that's why, in the beginning, there was all these issues with the hallucination of the model, because it was generating answers that didn't make sense, that were nonsensical, even sometimes, offensive. And that's because that's what is in the data, unfortunately, right? And so if you're going to take these models, then you have to do that customizing, that refinement, and making sure that when the model is searching for a response to a question or to a user, it avoids those kinds of issues, right? Because it can be very much problematic if your model is not giving these answers, right? Because if you're using it for your customers and they get a bot that's giving them crazy answers, then you definitely, lose that customer. This is another. This is the same Google's dialog flow that I showed you earlier. This is a breakdown of how it works and all of the different steps along the way. So you have the end user. There's the integration. There is also the API service that connects to their large language models, and then they have all of their webhooks, and there's an external API with the database, and all of that is involved in, when you give a question, you get, I'm frustrated trying to get the answer, but there's a lot going on that happens before these models can respond appropriately. And that is, I'm going to kind of skip through some of these. I'll share the slides with Dr. Amlan, and so he can share it with all of you, right? But so finally, I just want to leave you with this. Well, when you're thinking about your chatbot, these are some of the things that you need to think about, right? If you want to, get a quick chatbot, simple, there are platforms that, some of them are no code, low code that you can use, and they can give you a very efficient chatbot in very quickly. If you want something a little bit more customized, then that's where the Google framework, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, all of these places have the frameworks where you already can connect, through some third party and get some help and move along as far as building a little bit of a more complicated model. And then if you are a programmer, you have developer skills, and you want to go on to the Hugging Face platform and get one of those free open source models and build your own model, then that is also an option for you. These are some of the things that you need to consider in terms of what is the goal, what channel are you going to be using, whether it's your website or Facebook or wherever you want to put this thing eventually. And then you think about the architecture as well as the language that the model will be using. And will you integrate it with other apps? And what kind of data will be needed to refine this model? I've developed a model for a lawyer, so it's trained on, train is not the right word because the models are pre-trained. That's what GPT stands for, generative pre-trained language models. So they've already trained in the foundation, but you do the fine tuning with that extra data. And you can select whatever development platform that you want. And always remember to evaluate the performance of your model and make sure it's acting and behaving like it should. And if necessary, retrain and refine the models such that it can perform adequately. And I'm going to leave you with the final image of my, so this is what my custom API, custom model generated for the discussion that I was asking about. Introduction to neural networks, explain the basic concepts, application example, and encouraging exploration. So now I have a slide that is generated for each of those that I can put into a presentation and yeah, go with it. So that is all for now. I am so thrilled. If there are any questions, I'm open to questions. Or you can reach me on my LinkedIn profile or through Dr. Amlan or you know, whatever other resources. If you need help to create your own ChatGPT or conversational AI. But I thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Uohna, for her speech. And now I would like to, anyone have a question for Dr. Uohna? You can ask her. Anyone?
So maybe they're shy, but you can reach me in the LinkedIn platform if you don't want everyone to know your question.
Thank you, Dr. Uohna. Any queries? Any questions, students? Any questions? No?
Okay, well, I'm looking forward to some building of conversational chatbots from all of the students.
So apart from any questions, would you like to share some information with Dr. Uohna? No? Yeah.
Hello. I think, Dr. Uohna, it was very informative, and I appreciate your efforts. And we like to see that our students get in touch with you in future and they develop their one. Thank you.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you. I look forward to it. Thank you. So I'm going to sign off now because it's 10 o'clock here in Orlando. So
Okay.
bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Uohna.
All right.
Thank you.